Hello everybody, my name is Yohan, and welcome back to my channel, YoFrags. Today I will be talking about Rayhaan Terra. As you all may know, this is a very popular fragrance at the moment. It is from a popular Middle Eastern fragrance house slash, like, I don't want to call them a dupe house, but they take a lot of inspiration from popular fragrances and put their own twist on it. This is inspired by Homage's Outlands. As you know, Fragrance Flan really hyped this one up, but yeah, so I had to get my hand on it. I wanted to give it a test. I had a 10 ml decant of Homage Outlands, so I wanted to see. I've been on a Middle Eastern kick recently, and I want to see kind of what it's about. But packaging is pretty standard, like kind of honestly like designer level packaging. Box is cool. I love the green color. I'm a sucker for green. Same kind of pattern design on the bottle itself. I will say my one gripe, and I think I did touch on this on the Ramada Oriental versus Terra video. It does feel kind of cheap. Like, I don't know if you can hear that. The plastic doesn't feel super secure in there. Plastic bottle cap. Like, the glass itself feels thick. I wish they just kept the glass, but I mean, it is what it is, right? But overall, I think this is a very good interpretation of Outlands from the decant that I had. I will say this one felt spicier, but in a bad way. I think this fragrance is nice. I think it's good. I would rate it a 7 out of 10, and my wife also gave it a 7 out of 10. In the dry down, though, I think this is a 10 out of 10. But the only issue for me is that opening, which lasts for about 2 hours on my skin. Like that heavy spices, just this not overwhelming, but slightly like medicinal note that I get, and you mix that with like heavy spice and incense, it's kind of jarring, to be very honest. I do not think this is Blind by Safe. In fact, I think this is the opposite of Blind by Safe, especially if you live here in the US, where these sort of Middle Eastern / Oriental scents are not categorized as mass appealing, right? I think the designer houses do that the best, where I don't want to say that, some of them smell repetitive, but they don't mess around with incense as much, or spices. This one is like super heavy on the spices again. That's all I get, especially like up close. In the air, it's not as harsh, obviously, the way it's intended to be smelled, to be fair, right? Nobody's going up to you like, hey, can you smell this? And like putting their hand in your face, you know what I mean? So that's not happening. That's not realistic. But when I was testing it and trying to understand it more, that was what I was getting. This harsh spiciness. The cardamom comes in later to me. Like at least for my skin, it's just pure spice, incense, and a slight medicinal note. I don't know what it's coming from, but it's not bad. Like it's not something I would like. It's a scrubber, I do think it's wearable, but I would be very mindful with the sprays. This thing is a beast in projection, in longevity. This will fill a room. And I didn't spray this on clothes. I can't even imagine how much longer it would have lasted on clothes. Me personally, I don't like spraying my fragrances on my clothes. I know it lasts longer, but I don't want my clothes just smelling like that, But I would say, in terms of how close it is to Outlands, I would say it's like a 70, 75, 80% mark, I think that's being more than fair. It's definitely, I would say, not mass appealing, not Blind by Safe, but I think it's safer than Outlands. Quality wise, though, it's not even close. Like the scent from Outlands, the quality, just the way it wears, and like how it smells from start to finish is, you just can't get that level of quality for this price. Do I think it's overpriced? Yeah, I kind of do. I think I would buy Outlands. Like I would commit to a full bottle. I think at one point I forgot what store, or the Neiman Marcus near me, they had it on sale for like it was like, what, it was like 350, 360, something like that. For that price, I was considering it, but again, this type of scent doesn't typically do well for me, and my wife doesn't like these super spicy scents. So, if my wife doesn't like it, there's no point for me to wear it. I want to smell good for her too, as well as for myself. But generally, if I know, it's hard to avoid somebody you live with, right? And especially something with like Outlands or even Terra, this thing sticks around. Like when I sprayed this in my my home office, yeah, this filled the room immediately, and it was so strong. I only did one spray on my forearm, and I could smell that easily working, 6 to 8 hours easily. And then from like the 10 to 12 hour mark, it's like a small scent bubble. And then by the next morning, after I took a shower, I could still smell it on my forearm. If I went like, definitely a skin scent, but I could smell it, which was insane to me. If you want, a very amped up, good performing, beast mode, oriental, spicy fragrance, this will do that for you. This will itch that itch. I will say you have to be mindful about how much you spray and where you're wearing this to. I don't think this is like office safe, school safe. If you're in a classroom, this is not mass appealing. This is not blind buy safe. I think it becomes more mass appealing in the dry down, but for me, the dry down didn't come until like the hour 4 mark. So first 4 hours on my skin, I was getting heavy spices, slight sweetness around the 3 hour mark. And then after that 4 hour mark, I was getting like a really lovely spiced vanilla where that sweetness really came in. But before that, it was jammy incense, jammy fruits, and heavy, spicy, heavy. That's the best way I can describe it. But I think it's a great fragrance. I think for the price, it is pretty outstanding. You can get this for around like $45, $50, I think. I think that's a more than acceptable price for this, especially if you love this DNA. I was never the biggest fan of spices, like a spice, almost like a spice closet kind of feeling in my fragrances. So it's definitely something I've been trying to like acquire, like an acquired taste. But this and Ramada Oriental has helped me a lot in just developing my nose for those types of fragrances. Even the homages that I do own, they don't have that spiciness. My first homage was Black Iris, was super heavy. I really liked it. It was like a really wearable incense, but it was just very, very much too heavy and too dark to wear as like a daily. And then my wedding scent was actually Homage Reflection Man, and I love that. I think those are very different fragrances, and obviously Homage, they have their signature incense note that they use, but like that myrrh incense note, I think this is a good substitute, and I think it's a good bang for your buck. Like, I don't think you can go wrong. Will this be a replacement for Outlands? I think if you're looking to save up for Outlands, I would say just save up. If you want something that'll, if you don't plan on getting it anytime soon, and you want something to just fill that space, and as a substitute, a temporary substitute for like maybe you want to save up for like a year or something, right? Then I think this is great. I don't think you can go wrong with either. But again, be mindful about where you're wearing it. It's not blind buy safe. If you can, get a decant, but honestly, for the price, like $40 to $50, I think it's worth trying. Worst case scenario, you either gift it away, depending where you buy it, you may be able to return it, or selling it to a friend or aftermarket kind of thing. So that's where I'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining me today. Stay safe, and God bless.